I welcome Lauren Patten, Tony winner, and star of Death and Other Details. Thank you for joining me here today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Of course. Well, first, I want to ask you a little bit of a general question about Death and Other Details, and it's so well put together and enticing. Would you talk about what kind of spoke to you when you first saw your character Anna on the page?
Yeah, I mean, Mike and Heidi's writing is so cool. I feel that the characters are really their own and very specific, and especially in their humor. And I think
Mm.
um, it really jumped out to me right away. In some ways, how funny she is, and not because she's trying to be, but because she's really trying to hold a very chaotic family together,
Mm.
and the humor that comes out of that. So for me, when I first read the script, I just really I loved the humor in it. And of course, it being a mystery as well, I just always, immediately wanted to know what was happening next. And I wanted to know, you know, who the big bad is and all of that. So I got very sucked in too from reading it.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, that's what I would say is I just found it very funny too, which I loved.
Yeah, there's loads of humor in it. It's a lot of things. Uh,
Mhm.
And to that end, I did want to ask you, how much did you know about the the ending that's coming? Like, how much did you know ahead of time, or who the big bad might be?
Yeah, I did. I knew a pretty good amount because I think maybe from me coming from a theater background, I'm used to having beginning, middle, and end when I start, and
Right.
so I asked a lot of questions and tried to find out as much as I could, as much as they were able to tell me prior to going into filming,
Yeah.
because that's just the kind of process that I'm used to. So I actually knew a pretty good amount about the general arc of where the story was going.
Got it. Well, thank you. And I want, before I get kind of into specifics about your character, I would love to hear a little bit about shooting because the look of the show is so beautiful. All of you look so lush on this ship in the middle of, is it the Mediterranean?
The
Uh,
Mediterranean.
yeah. Would you talk a bit about shooting location?
Yeah. Well, it was exciting because we filmed in a lot of different places. So we originally when we filmed the pilot, we were based out of LA and we got to film on the Queen Mary, which was really cool
Yeah.
to actually be on a historic ocean liner along those lines. And the production really went all over. I mean, we filmed in Canada, we filmed out on the water on boats. The production went to Malta for part of the series. So it was really, I think the creators always envisioned it like the show would be a travelogue as well in some ways. And so it felt that way filming it. Um, we got to be in a lot of very beautiful settings and on gorgeous sets as well for the interiors.
Yeah, it's just all so lush, and I don't know what it is about the color. It's just incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, and I wanted to start talking about Anna more specifically by talking about the fact that she's moneyed, she's got some level of power, she is
Yeah.
trying to hold her family together. However, she's also struggling to be seen by her father and facing sexism. Would
Yeah.
you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. I think that it's a very interesting sort of situation being a person of obvious and enormous privilege and wealth, like she is, and also the internal gender dynamics in families and companies like that, and that she has always envisioned herself taking over the company and has always really worked enormously hard for that.
Mhm.
Um, Whereas her brother has sort of skated by in life and is sort of the family mess up. Um, and I think that something that you see come out throughout the series is a kind of complicated relationship as well to her family and her last name. And I think there's a big feeling to prove that she is more than just her last name, that she's not just she's not where she's at in her career solely because of her last name. And I think it's a big sore spot for her. Um, so it was very interesting exploring a person who yeah, by no means has it hard and actually has so many blind spots around her own privilege,
Mhm.
but is struggling to be taken seriously in some ways by the men in her family.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. And I want to touch a little bit on, I believe, is this like your first kind of almost lead role in a series? Or, yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
Because you're really from Broadway. And well, congratulations. And I think it's terrific. And it's also kind of incredible that Anna is queer and
Mhm.
she is treated, um, story wise, with as much care and as fully realized, and is
Mhm.
able to have flaws as much as anyone else. And she's also sexual, and we see that right out of the gate. So,
Yeah.
would you talk a little bit about, especially for your first big series, playing this character who is, a lot of things?
Yeah. I mean, I just love the fact that Anna is a lesbian and is a queer person in this world, and that it's also just not part of the plot or the story.
Mm.
I'm very excited by by that type of representation getting, hopefully more and more common. Obviously, it's very important as well for us to tell stories that are really explicitly queer and are talking about queer experience. But I think in some ways, just as important is just having these characters existing in a world and living their life, because in a lot of ways that is just what we're doing, which is we're just living our life. And so I was very excited by the fact that Anna is a queer woman in this world, and there's never any moment of her having difficulty being queer. She's out, all of the, none of the sort of tropes of what we see as when our stories are allowed to be told, as if we're showing
Mhm.
XYZ type of narrative.
Yeah.
And I was very excited about that. So it felt very cool to be playing a character um, that was just living her life and also was queer. And
Yeah.
that just given circumstance of it.
So, so Death and Other Details is very funny. It's a big mystery, but there's also these stories of loss and kind of trauma with Anna's childhood friend Imogen, who is wrapped up in this mystery, and then of course Anna's wife Layla, who's endured some trauma and is struggling with that. Would you talk about weaving those elements into this mystery and comedy?
Yeah, I think that something that I love about the show is I feel like even though it's in a very heightened and stylized world, I do feel like it is still based in the truth of the characters, and it's character driven in that way, which of course is always going to be heavy plot when you're dealing with a murder mystery. But I think that you also get invested in what these characters are dealing with. And so even though things can be really funny, it can also be heightened and really focused on this murder mystery aspect. These are people dealing with real things, And I think particularly it's interesting with Anna, sort of, she's always been um, adjacent to other people's trauma in some way, like with Imogen. And Anna really loved Imogen's mom, and so that was always a loss for her too. But of course, it was not actually her mom, and so really being more adjacent to Imogen's grief and trauma around that, and then now with her wife dealing with a trauma of her accident and the
Yeah.
paranoia that come from that, and not being clear why she's feeling the ways that she's feeling. Um, so in some ways, it was very interesting playing Anna, who's sort of surrounded by people dealing with these things. And I think she is often such a logical, kind of rational person that I
Mhm.
think playing somebody who doesn't necessarily understand how to show up for that in a lot of ways.
Yeah. 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 Thank you. I wanted to ask you, you get to sing at one
Yeah.
point in a very funny scene. Would you talk a little bit about shooting that? It's really fun.
Yeah. Yeah, I really loved that scene. It's a karaoke scene, and Heidi, who is one of the creators of the show, saw me in Jagged Little Pill on Broadway and really wanted to get some way of me singing in on the
Mhm.
show. And what I love so much about that moment is we were only supposed to sing part of it. And then there was I think the last take we did, they just never called cut. And so we just kept going and just improvised for the rest of the song. And I really just thought it was a fun thing that we were doing,
Yeah.
and it would turn up as a blooper somewhere or something, and then they kept the whole thing. So the second half of that karaoke scene is all one take of us just messing around, not thinking at all that it would actually end up in the show. So that was a really fun surprise for me.
I love it. I love it. Well, thank you. And one thing, as a Broadway fan, I love seeing Mandy Patinkin. I just wonder what that was like for you working with Mandy.
I mean, same. I'm a theater kid who grew up around theater, and
Yeah.
we have these people who are truly our legends in the theater, and Mandy is one of them. So it was extremely exciting when I found out that he was going to be in the show. And I didn't get as many scenes with him as perhaps I would have liked, because our character is sort of, he's really on the case with
Mhm.
Imogen. But the times that I did get to actually work with him were really special for me.
Yeah, wonderful. Well, it looks like there's a season 2 teed up. So fingers crossed for that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I hope.
Lauren, I just want to give you an opportunity. If there's something that you want to say about the series, or anything that you're working on in addition to it, I want to give you that chance now before we
Yeah.
run. Yeah.
For sure. Actually, yeah, I do. I have another project that's going on at the same time. I'm releasing an EP. It's called Covers. It's all cover songs. It's 5 songs that I've worked on with my band, and we've played live for years, and we finally decided to record. So yeah, I've been working on putting that out too. The first single is already out. It's All I Really Want, the Alanis Morissette song. And
Uh,
the full EP drops March 8th. So I've been excited to start rolling that out too at the same time with the show.
Congratulations. Can you tease a couple of the other covers?
Yes. Well, the next single that I have coming out is February 9th, and that is God is a Woman, the Ariana Grande song,
Oh, yeah.
which is one that I'm very most proud of that we've put together and what our arrangement is for that. So I'm very excited to get that out there.